sir, overcoming all obstacles.
Now to our look back at the ABSA Off-Road Championship special vehicle season in 3 different classes, starting off again in the Western Cape in the idyllic little town of Darling. It certainly spelled out a season that was going to be a humdinger. In this category, all the cars referred to as space train vehicles, the competition is just as exacting and fast. There were new cars, new designs, old favourites, new faces and the veterans, but amongst all of them, there was a burning desire to succeed within all the top competitors. Up ahead after the prologue had settled the starting order, there were 2 tough and dusty 166-kilometre loops that made up the route in Darling. Fast improving father and son team Cully and Quentin Stilwart set the pace early on and were proving to be a formidable pairing in the canary yellow Stilwart Zarco. Most competitors quickly found out that the dry route was a severe test of skill, patience and courage. Class A, the premier category in the specials, boasted 15 entries for the Darling race, and the defending national champions Evan Hutchinson and Akim Bergman were back, but unfortunately they rolled, was hit by Nahim Mosaji and both cars caught alight. Luckily there were no serious injuries following prompt action from Woolridge and Schulthammer, who stopped and helped. Terence Marsh and Peter Groenewald had a superb second lap to storm into the lead, while Bez Besaidnout and Johan de Bruin steered Deridenko back into the lead of Class B, relegating Gil Nel and Dion de Kock into second place in their Luke Zarco Truggy. And in the all-new Class B, the brothers David and Gary White certainly had all the horses going in one direction, and in the lead in Class P in their Ruricon back with its 3.5-litre Nissan engine. But Nick Gosler and Richard Carolyn were not letting up and chased them all the way home. At the line it was, however, Marsh, the 05 champion, who celebrated a 34-second victory over Peter Ruthven and Deval Boshoff. And in Class P and B, the form book went out the window. All it meant was that the championship battles were wide open.
Great start to the season, great start. We've worked really hard, both in the workshop and ourselves, myself and Peter, really worked hard through December and January on our fitness, making sure we can keep our intensity up. We came off a bad year last year, and it's just nice to see everything paying off, it really has.
And that's the key in off-road racing, preparation, and lots of it, all the time. Not only on car setup, but also on physical and mental fitness. In the rally-like conditions en route of the Eastern Cape 500, those factors all came into play. Round 2 of the 08 ABSA Off-Road Championship was a tough challenge. This route was totally different to any other the drivers in the specials had faced before. A lot of the route was run in the Longmore forests, and this area hosts the VW Rally, a round of the Sasol South African Rally Championship. So crews with any rally experience had a great idea of exactly how to keep things going and what to expect in the sort of terrain the off-road fraternity does not often visit. Western Cape winners Marsh and Groenewald again had a fast start. The combination had scored the maximum points at the pipe opener and was sitting pretty, while Peter Ruthven and Deval Boshoff were not here because Ruthven was getting married. Their stablemates Michael Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson in the other Regent Racing back were also getting good reckoning of themselves and were up into the top 5. But they were all getting reports on how quickly the Stilwarts were racing. They were building on a 3-minute cushion over Marsh and Groenewald. Cully's brother Herman was just behind the 07 championship runners-up, the father and son combination of Nick and Ryan Harper, who were again doing duty in the big turquoise Atlas Copco bat. And Herman, with Paul Helberg riding shotgun, was going all out to try and catch them. Sandwiched in there too, it was Clint Gibson and Gary Campbell. The racing was tight, with another championship title contender Shamir Varayawa and his co Siegfried Rousseau in that big Total Motorsport Porter in 6th place and catching up all the time. Whitehouse and Carlson were right on song for a good finish and some much needed championship points to open their account. In Class B, it was Loder Brain and Rudy Brits who was making all the others sit up and take notice as they went away to a big 11-minute win. With the ever-steady young Cryer and his new nav Tiddo Furth not that far behind, but holding on well. And Nell with de Kock full 3rd again in the Class B battle for supremacy. In the all-new P-Class for cars with engines with 6 cylinders or less, the 2 Dons, Thompson and Blakey, were moving up front, leaving Gosler and Carolyn to eat their dust. But line honours went to the Stalwarts, who took the special vehicle victory. They had time to spare over Marsh and Groenewald. In fact, 2 minutes and 47 seconds. The Harpers signalled a return to form with a fourth. And in Class B, it was De Bruyn and Brits leading on the 5 cars that got to the finish line in one piece. The Dons were the only Class B team to finish.
It was quite difficult. You couldn't. We just couldn't pass him. We caught him. We sat behind him the whole of the second loop. He managed to pull a little bit on us. We had an accelerator cable that was sticking, but it's just extremely dangerous. I mean, I really didn't enjoy it. We'll take whatever result we can get out of this. It wasn't ideal. It was tough. It rained during the second loop. You can't get past anybody. So we take off wherever we'll take the result. It was tough. It was hard.
But things were destined to be sweeter in the third round in the Nissan Sugarbelt 400 in Aston, KwaZulu-Natal. The early weather predictions for the 400 kilometers was sunny with a high of 28 degrees and 91% humidity. That spelled good racing, and the headquarters for the third leg of the National Championship Series was the Beaumont Aston Farmers Club outside Pietermaritzburg. Once the prologue over 65 k's had been completed, the racing proper was on, and the specials relished the opportunity to race in this part of South Africa. Prologue specialists Gary Bertelt and Andre Vermeulen made their Atlas Copco Porter sing along in the thick bush of the Holiday Province, while defending national champions Motorrights Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman were ready to defend their title after their accident in the Western Cape. Alberts and Hunter made their first seasonal appearance in the top 5 in the Rapsa back, and they held on to take a well-deserved third place. But the dust in Aston was a great leveller, but no one told John Moore and Tom Claassen that. No one told them that number 13 was supposed to be unlucky too. They scored championship points with the 4th place. Whitehouse and Carlson showed off their consistent form when they again bagged a fistful of points when they took 5th in the specials. Herman Stalwart got the better of his brother here, but it wasn't for a lack of trying. The Stalwarts were racing hard, and after Cully's win, every point would make a difference in the title race. Ron Bailey and Warren Manthe rounded out the top 8, holding off Shamir Varayawa in the Total Motorsport Porter. He and Rousseau had several problems and were playing catch-up, and luckily they were too. The same could have been said for Brandon Harkis and Richard Leek, who had teamed up in the second motorbike back. Brian Furth grabbed another win and had a lot of time to spare in Class B. While Simon Beckett and Stephen Harris made a big splash and collected the resultant points for a fine runners-up spot. And the Class B championship battle was starting to hot up. Nolan de Kock again took a place on the podium, earmarking them as one of the most consistent crews in the category. And in Class B, the brothers Johan and Etienne Besaidnout had more than half an hour to spare, a comprehensive win in anyone's book, leaving the two Dons in second in KwaZulu-Natal. It was, however, a huge win for Bertelt and the Atlas Copco team, while Motorrad was happy to score opening points with Hutchison and Bergman. The Stalwarts stayed on top of the championship log with Marsh and Groenewald 4 points back. Bertelt's win jump-started his challenge. And it was top of the class for Jan Cryer, while the Besaidnout brothers got a big win in Class P.
Tough day of racing. It was close racing. At no stage did they allow us to get a gap and just take it easy. We had to race the whole way to the line. But I must say, Atlas Copco have been fantastic, and really the people around me that have made the difference. I haven't changed much myself, but my mechanic, Kenny Veringer, has made a big difference, and having the two Parker brothers as a backup crew has just been phenomenal. It's just really made a lot of difference to the team.
The big turquoise and white car just 4 weeks later led off the start line in the Kalahari Desert of Botswana in pursuit of a second consecutive title. But over 1,000 kilometers, anything can happen, and often does. It's an event with a rich history and even harsher conditions. The 4th race of ABSA's Off-Road Championship for the special vehicles could be as tough as they come. For most teams, this little get-together is more taxing than all the others. It's outside the borders of South Africa. It's 3 days worth of concerted effort, and then it's hot, dusty, dry, and it's the longest of all the races. 2.5 times, actually. Shamir Varayawa and Siegfried Rousseau love tough conditions, and they got them in Botswana, and they loved them in Botswana. The Total Motorsport duo whizzed through, around and over all the obstacles put in front of them, knowing that it was the father and son combination, Cully and Quinton Sulwat, who were leading the national championship. They were just 4 points ahead of former champion Terence Marsh and his navigator Pieter Groenewald. The desert race requires almost 16 hours of complete concentration in the car, which in itself is quite a feat, so physical fitness and the resultant mental sharpness is an absolute must. Class P was again a march to victory for the Besaidnout boys in their Edenko bat, again pushing the two Dons, that's Thompson and Blakey, into the runners-up spot. But no one could match new dad Variawa and Rousseau for pace, guile and cunning in the pursuit of preserving calm mind and body. He won by almost 3 minutes, but Cully and Quinton Sulwat's third meant that they were now just 7 points ahead, while the rest of the chasers were well within striking distance. Father Bez Besaidnout in Class B and his boys in Class P celebrated victory on the same weekend, both strengthening their championship points and thus hopes. It's taken Variawa an age to taste victory here.
It's an unbelievable feeling. We've been trying, look, I've been racing for 15 years, and I've been trying for 15 years to win this race. And today it happened. I guess the new arrival in the family, the new baby on Thursday made all the luck, gave us the luck. We got in front 5 Ks from the start this morning, and we've remained there ever since. No problems with the car, just kept a good pace, and monitoring where the guys were behind us. And I tell you, this last 100 Ks has been but nerve-wracking.
The Total Motorsport team's win meant a leap up the points log with Marsh and Groenewald 9 shy. The men from Palabora were in control on top, but were they really? In the Class B and P battle, De Bruyn and Brits only had 8 points worth of breathing space, while Thompson and Blakey's ultra-consistent driving and navigating in the first 4 races gave them 12 points. With the halfway mark passed and just 4 races left in the series, the special vehicles dominated in the Sun City 400 prologue, meaning that the route suited the cars with their massive engines and huge suspension travel down to the ground, if you'll pardon the pun. Nick Harper with Sunwine riding shotgun in the Atlas Copco bat shot out of the gate and clocked the fastest time for the so-called Space Frame cars, signalling a return to winning form for them. Variawa's win in the longest race of the series gave him a lot of confidence, and the Total driver was actually brimming with it. Colin Matthews and Alan Smith in the Century Property Development bat was another crew who had made consistency their watchword, and they kept the pressure squarely on Variawa, who was exactly 2 minutes ahead of them. The Harpers, battling a misfire, did translate their prologue form into a first podium of the year, giving them a well-earned 3rd place. But the championship pace-setters Cully and Quinton Sulwat got the Sulwat Racing bat Spec 4 to the line in 4th place, and they again scored points, riding without a clutch for the last 300 Ks. They kept their championship hopes alive, but then again, so did their rivals Marsh and Groenewald, moving up from 10th place to take 5th. Bertolt and Vermeulen made it 2 Atlas Copcos in the first 6. 32 minutes back with only 9 Class A finishes, underlining the fact that Sun City's 400 Ks are truly tough to negotiate. Ruthven and Boshoff nabbed 7th place in 7 hours and 10 minutes, with Clint Gibson and Gary Campbell making another appearance in the top 10 in their Gibson Racing bat. The Northwest's local population loved the spectacle, sound pace and furious work rate of the big bangers as they came by, providing a huge spectacle. The Staffix Racing crew of Alistair Stubbs and Peter DeWitt celebrated a first win for them in 08 in Class B. While championship 4th placer Jan Kraai and his nav Tiddo Vogt had battled flat tyres all the way round, but were still firmly settled into 2nd. With Gil Nel and Dion de Kock the only other finishers in a class that suffered no less than 6 retirements. The Rubicon bat bearing number P4 was in the skilled hands of David White, with younger brother Gary calling out the route. They finally, after 300 Ks, wrested control of the class battle from the other contenders, with Goslan Carolyn eventually almost an hour behind in 2nd place. For Variawa, it was a 2nd consecutive victory and a win that kept them right in the hunt. The Sulwats only had a splendid 2-point lead, and it was all to race for with only 3 chances left. Stubbs and DeWitt strode to a handsome win in Class B, and in P, it was a whitewash as the brothers brought her home first.
We had a nice run. First group we lost the belt on the superchargers, so we were about 30% down on power. Came with the pits, changed the belt, and then our second loop was great. We managed to catch Shamir a little bit, but then on the straights, that quarter of his gives it legs, and then he ran away from us a little bit. But otherwise, we had a nice good clean run.
The Limpopo province stretches out over a massive 124,000 square kilometers, with the impressive Waterberg biosphere, as declared by UNESCO, forming a great backdrop for off-road racing. The sixth round of the National Championship over 400 kilometers took to the bush here, and as Class A, B and P teams drove into the capital of Limpopo, Polokwane, the stage was set for this epic battle. Just 29 points separated the top four. Everyone expected a tough race, and that's exactly what they got. Variawa and Rousseau were shooting for win number 3 in a row, but were left chasing a concentrated and measured performance from Gary Bertelt and Andre Vermeulen, who were themselves waiting for win number 2 of the season. Their teammates, the Harpers, again took third, while championship leaders, the father and son team of Collie and Quentin Silbolt, took their second consecutive fourth place. John Moore and Tom Klaassen overcame a non-finish at Sun City and bounced back nicely with fifth, while Marsh and Groenewald were just not quick enough to repeat their early season heroics here in the Limpopo province. In off-road racing, the old adage, it's prevention rather than cure that does the trick, rings true. One has to preserve the car for the long haul, and Steady Does It is another one that you could probably add to the list. For the special drivers, there are always unseen traps which can wreck a car and any championship hopes. Taking National Crown hopes, all 3 categories were still up for grabs, and in Class B, Hendrik Kraai and Tito Vogt combined to take a well-deserved win, while championship contenders Louw de Bruin and Rudy Britt settled for second. Bez Besaidnout and Johan de Bruin did their championship hopes the power of good with the third place just 5 minutes further back. And in Class B, the Whites again nabbed the top step of the podium after 3 earlier DNFs. They were racing superbly, and the Besaidnouts scored more valuable championship points in second. But the second 08 win went the way of Bertelt and Vermeulen. However, Variawa's exploits hauled him to the top of the championship battle. Kraai and Vogt were as good as gold in Class B, and a tight battle between the siblings in Class B, in which they were the only finishers.
It absolutely does. In Polokwane here, I've had success before, and it looks like we got success again today. We seem to have just managed to close the gap on Nick Harper, but he made my day a very tough one. He made me work hard for it today.
The penultimate round of the ABSA Off-Road Championship in Lydenburg, and in the special vehicle class, 2 fine mid-season wins in the long and arduous Toyota 1000 Desert Race, and the next, the Sun City 400, followed by that consolidating second in the Limpopo 400, gave the total Porter pair of former champion Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau the lead in both the Drivers' and the Navigators' Championships, but it was only by 5 points. The Silbolts had their backspec 4 finely tuned and set up for the conditions in the Toyota Dealer 400, and the tall German driver was ready to let out the reins a little. He was hell-bent on taking a national championship almost 15 years after winning his first one. However, the dust, grit and grass in and around the beauty of Lydenburg finally brought a victory for the defending champion Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman, who were dogged by bad luck all season. They finally got the Motorite Racing Bat Spec 3 to listen all the way, from go to woe, and were impressive at the head of affairs. The Silbolts had a super run all the way through, and even though they could not match Hutchison in the speed department, their second place gave them the championship lead again, as Variawa and Rousseau, after several problems, could not get it to the finish line in one piece. In B, Hendrik Kraai and Tito Vogt made it 2 wins in a row. They tapped into a rich vein of form. With de Bruin and Brits in the Roa combat again taking second in the forests of Lydenburg. Giel Nel and Dion de Kock went one better than the previous race and stepped onto the podium in 3rd place. With Simon Beckett and Stephen Harris having to settle for 4th in their Century Property Development bat. In Class P, Don Thompson in car with Gary Campbell this time scorched to a win in a tad over 8 hours, and that gave him more than 10 minutes worth of breathing space over the chasers. Johan and Etienne Besaidnout, who had had a fantastic season in their Adenko bat. The brothers David and Gary White took 3rd. But the day belonged to Hutchison and Bergman, who made a comeback with a big bang, while Whitehouse and Carlson impressed again with a great 3rd place. It was also a second consecutive win for Kraai and Vogt in Class B, while Don Thompson bagged a fine victory in Class P ahead of the Besaidnout brothers. Hutchison was glad to put a bad year behind him with a great win.
It's been a long year. I never thought I'd feel so much relief over excitement. But, yeah, we've had a disastrous year. Just can't believe that we finally put it together and managed to break the spell, you know. we've been up there, we've led most of the races, but just haven't managed to finish them. We've had mechanical breakdowns the whole year, and looks like hopefully we've shaken the spook, and we managed to bring it home.
To the 8th and final race of the season, the RFS Magalies 400, and in the special vehicle class, the battles for the 3 national crowns were far from over. There were 3 contenders within 24 points of each other in Class A, and the 3-horse race between Kali Sulwat, Shamir Variawa and Terence Marsh was to be one of spectacular proportions. Palebora's Kali and Quentin Sulwat had been ultra steady, with 1 win in the Eastern Cape over 400 Ks and a finish in every one of the 7 races thus far. Matthews and Smith were there or thereabouts every time, but a win eluded them in 2008. They got the runners-up spot 2.5 minutes down, while Variawa's gallant effort was good enough for 3rd, but not enough to change the championship standings. Whitehouse and Carlson was another crew who were very consistent, but again could not clinch a win, but they learnt a huge amount in 08. John Moore, this time with the underpinner at his side, came through from midfield to take 5th place, and despite summer rains aplenty, the Magaliesberg area and its mountains kicked up a lot of dust, making it tough to race all out all the time. The Harpers put to bed a rather strange season for them after being the championship runners-up in 07. While the rest of the Class A entrants enjoyed a brand new route and new challenges on a race that seems to have made a very popular debut. In Class B, even though De Bruyn and Brits had clinched the deal, that didn't stop Jan Kruin Tidofurg to get the Keymax back to its 3rd top step in a row, with the Besaidnots producing the best Class B performance of the season, finishing 6th overall. The new Class C Zarko Jr. of Johan de Klerk and Louis Pretorius debuted at the RFS Magalies 400. This has been introduced as an ultra-competitive vehicle, and it's to encourage newcomers to the sport at regional and local level. At the line, though, leading the overall special standings and handsomely winning the RFS Magalies 400, and as a result the national championship, it was the Sulwats. And the top 5 for classes B and P. Sheer consistency proved to be the most important factor in a dream season for Karl Heinz and Quentin Sulwat in the special vehicle category of the Absa Off-Road Championship. It had taken Kali a long time to clinch another one. In Class B, De Bruyn and Brits had a 15-point win, while the Besaidnout brothers enjoyed a 19-point lead. That was the season that was.
That was the ultimate test. The Absa Off